welcome. Welcome. Oh, this is so exciting. I would like to thank everyone for attending our first ever listening session for the Black community in San Luis Obispo. My name is Renata Campbell. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And my other amazing moderator is?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Daniel Almeida. I am a faculty member in the School of Education at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. My pronouns are he, him, and his.
And I should say that I'm an academic counselor at Cuesta College, and my specific constituents are the men at CMC, and I'm also a wedding photographer in the area. Can everyone see me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So first things first, I would like to offer peace to our ancestors and our elders. We walk in your strength, your legacy, and your power, and today and every day. So I think that's really important for everyone to know. And I would like to thank all of you again for being here. This is so exciting. And including our panelists who are from Cuesta College, Cal Poly, Race Matters SLO, the NAACP, the San Luis Obispo chapter, the Diversity Coalition, Cuesta College and Cal Poly alumni, and some of our high schoolers. So this is really, really special to have such a wide array of all the constituency within our area. So let's go over a couple of community norms or ground rules before we get started. For those of you not talking, can you please mute yourselves and listen respectfully without interrupting, and listen actively with an ear to understanding others' views, and don't just think about what you're going to say while someone is talking. And please commit to learning and not debating. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Dr. Almeida to introduce the panelists.
Great. So I'll introduce the panelists, but I first wanted to say just a little bit about what I see as the purpose of this session. And ultimately it is for everyone to hear multiple Black voices at once, and to learn from that, to hear about the diversity of experiences that Black folks in the San Luis Obispo area, Central Coast area, experience, from students to staff and community members. So just wanted to share that. And now, so if the panelists could introduce themselves, state your name, your major, the school you're attending or that you graduated from. And for those in the community, please state your name and the organization that you're from. And I'll call on folks. So we'll start with Dr. Veronica West.
Hi, thank you. My name is Veronica West, and I guess he, she, and her. And I have been living in the San Luis Obispo area since 1994. I attended Cal Southern University for my PhD, and I teach at Bremen University, and I also am a counselor here at Cuesta College. And my specialty right now is general services and DSPS. It's nice to be here and happy to be here and meet you all. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Shakur.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shakur Foster. I'm a kinesiology major, and I go to Cuesta College. Is that it?
Sorry, I keep unmuting myself. Yes, that's good. Michael Boyer. You're on mute, Michael.
Thank you. Michael Boyer, I'm a founding director of the Diversity Coalition of San Luis Obispo, and I actually went to the University of Oregon.
Thanks, Michael. Tatiana.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tatiana Glenn. I am a Cuesta College alumni, and my major was audio technology, which focuses on recording music.
Okay, next is Doreen. Doreen, you're on mute. Okay, while Doreen is working on her audio, how about Ashley?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Ashley Austin. I am currently going to Cal Poly, studying psychology and child development, as well as completing prerequisites for pre-med, as I want to become a child psychiatrist.
Thank you. Dawn.
Hi, I'm Dawn. I go to Cuesta and I'm a computer science major. I use she, her, hers pronouns. Yeah.
Is Araya on? No? Okay.
She's actually still working until 7, she said.
Oh, okay. Zane?
Hello, my name is Zane Ellis Rector. I'm a 5th-year architecture major at Cal Poly, and I'm also the current president of internal affairs of the Black Student Union at Cal Poly. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Oh, did I say Camille? No, Camille?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Camille. Pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a 2nd-year master's student at Cal Poly in the Higher Education Counseling Student Affairs program. And yeah, I'm excited and appreciative of the opportunity to share this space with you all.
Thank you so much. Christina?
Hi, everybody. My name is Christina Scholars. I'm a financial aid specialist here at Cuesta College. I am also the co-advisor for the Black Student Union here on campus, also known as Umoja. Dawn didn't say it, but Dawn is actually our BSE president. And I'm in my 1st year as a grad student at Cal Poly in the Higher Education Counseling and Student Affairs program. Yes.
Thank you so much. Courtney from Race Matters.
Hey, everybody. I'm Courtney Hale. She, hers, her. I'm the co-founder of Race Matters. Moved here in high school, but we'll talk about that later.
And Cheryl Vines. Oh, Cheryl, you muted.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Vines. I'm co-founder of the NAACP for San Luis Obispo County. And let's see, grew up here in Napomo, and I could tell you more about that. Graduated from UC Riverside in interior design.
Thank you. Mariana?
Hi, everyone. My name is Mariana Carlone. I'm an elementary school teacher. I currently teach 4th grade in Santa Maria. I've been to many schools, but my most recent schools are Cal Poly. I got my teaching credential and my master's in curriculum and instruction. I just graduated in June.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Carlton?
Hey, y'all. My name is Carlton Brown. I'm a student at Mission College Prep, and I am the co-president of the Black Lives Matter initiative at my school. Thank you guys for having me. Yeah, let's learn some stuff.
Wow, thank you so much. Is there anyone that I didn't get to introduce themselves? Okay, so we're going to get started now. So the panelists have a little time to talk. And Christina, do you want to go into more detail about what they're going to be talking about?
Yeah, so, you know, I feel like we've had a lot of panels in the past, and they don't really get us to, they don't allow us to necessarily share about our own personal selves. Some of the questions allow little tidbits, but I thought this would be a really nice way of us to get to know each other, to build a community within ourselves, and realize that there is support out there, not just for ourselves in this group tonight, but for students that are at Cal Poly that are maybe hesitant to join the BSU, or to reach out to other Black students or staff and faculty, including Cuesta. I want the students to know, staff and faculty, that we are in this together. It really is teamwork. And that's what has gotten me here necessarily. So I hope that, yeah, I think there will be some tears shed. I think there'll be some laughs, and I hope we all walk away from this healing just a little bit more.
Thank you so much. So as we talk about this, since this is being started through Cuesta, I would like for us to start with the Cuesta students first, then the Cal Poly students, then the high school students, and then the community, if that's okay. So let's start off with Shakur.
I guess I can try to talk about the Black Lives Matter movement and how things have like felt like, I don't know, just sitting around driving through slow and seeing like a bunch of, you know, faces that aren't similar to mine. It's like different pigment, from Hispanic people to Asian people to white people, and so on and so forth. Just sitting right there and fighting or spending their time like trying to protest against, you know, just what's been going on. It just makes me feel bad for my ancestors. Like they haven't been able to witness any of this. Like during the murder of Emmett Till, like how powerful would it have been if my ancestors were able to like witness like the unity and how much these people like care about us. So I don't know, it's just been like kind of an emotional thing for me. I've driven past it. I can't join because like I work with adults with developmental disabilities, and they're an at-risk population, but just driving through there and seeing, you know, all these people and their support and watching them take a stand and show which side they're on, it's just been incredibly powerful for me. That's it.
Thanks for sharing that, Shakur. And I think, you know, what perhaps makes this moment different is more of the unity that we're seeing among the races within the Black Lives Matter movement. It's not just Black people marching, it's across the spectrum. So thank you for sharing that. Who's next, Renata?
Let's go with Dawn for right now.
Hi, I'm Dawn. A little about myself. I was born in England to Nigerian parents, and then when I was 5, we moved to Philadelphia. I lived there for a year, and then from there we moved to San Francisco. And that's where I spent most of my life until high school. I went to boarding school in Texas. And then from there, I decided to come back for college here at Cuesta. And through all of that, being able to be in different places, I think was a privilege just for me to be able to see how Black people are treated in different environments and kind of growing up in various, I guess, cities. So I think my racial awakening almost was when I went to Texas, which a lot of people can maybe imagine. The South is a little bit different, but I was kind of in one of those weird in-betweens where I was in a PWI, predominantly white institution, in kind of like a predominantly white neighborhood, very wealthy students, and I'm not wealthy. So even that socioeconomic status like difference was a lot, but then to even kind of just be surrounded by a lot of people who view the world differently just because of that or because of their skin color, it was hard to fit in. It was kind of hard already just because it was a new state, it's high school, we're young, there are already cliques, and then kind of being othered by all of the white people, being othered by all of the Black people because I wasn't Black enough, that kind of thing. So that was kind of something I went through. And then I think the height of kind of discovering, I guess for me, like racism directed towards me was during the 2016 election. There were a lot of views that went completely opposite ways. And that following day at school was a tough day for everyone. People were crying, people were actually fighting, people were spitting on each other, people were saying bad things to each other. It was insane. I've never seen anything like that before. And then people were doubting my experiences as a Black woman, saying that I've never experienced racism, saying that I don't actually go through anything because we are all equal and that we all have equal opportunities now. And I never had to fight for my existence like that before. I never had to prove that I belong here and that I actually am allowed to be here. I have a say. And knowing that I have to fight for that while other people are just entitled to that was something different entirely. And then when I moved to SLO, I was kind of wary already because I had had these intense experiences in Texas and I didn't want that to repeat. It had made me question whether I wanted to go to that high school. I wanted to drop out. I wanted to transfer elsewhere. Endless nights crying. I did not want to be there. So I didn't want that to repeat at Cuesta. And then I got to SLO and it was 3 weeks before I saw another Black person. This was completely different than Texas. At least there were Black people in Texas. I was surprised. I was like, what do I do? Where do I go? And I was just walking around campus doing whatever I had to do because I had classes. I was the only Black person in my classes. There were no Black teachers. There were no Black faculty, no Black staff. I was looking around like it's only white people. This is not what I want to do. This is going to be a repeat of high school. And I was almost terrified, like, am I going to make it through college? And a lot of people don't know that these are things that affect whether people stay in school or not. These are things that affect whether people choose the path that they want to go down. These are things that we have to think about that a lot of other people do not have to think about. And so then I met Christina and Jeff and things changed. Thank goodness. Finally, representation, finally Black people. I also met Dr. West, finally a Black counselor. I was tired of constantly being underestimated kind of in the counseling department, I guess, probably due to my skin color. And it was just nice to finally feel almost a sense of comfort. But then it stopped there. It was only them. After that, I didn't see Black people in my classes. There was still no Black faculty and staff. And so that was kind of hard. I joined ASCCR student government. I'm the only Black person on the student government. And recently we've actually been talking about kind of what was going on with the board and everything that was going with that situation. And when we brought it up, I was initially assuming, everyone would kind of want to make change and kind of want to fix what the board didn't fix, essentially. And that was not the case. Even in that situation, people were doubting my experiences as a Black woman, saying, is there really racism in our classrooms? Which there is. And the fact that a lot of these people do not know these things is why I'm so glad that we're even having this kind of panel right now where I can share my opinions, we can all share our own experiences and just have people listen. It's not an argument, it's not even necessarily like, I guess it's a discussion, but it's kind of like I finally get to get it off my chest and just know that somebody heard me. So that's kind of what I have to say.
Wow, thank you, Dawn. That was great. Having the experience of living in multiple states, but still having the experience, of course, still being Black in all those places, but also the difference between maybe having representation and a critical mass of representation, maybe more so in Texas of Black folks. But then when you get to SLO, I had the same experience once where I saw a Black man at the gas station and I couldn't remember the last time I saw another Black man and what that did to me. And anyway, just want to thank you so much for your openness. And I look forward to hearing from others. So who's next, Renata?
Zane.
Yeah, I will happily go. Hello again. My name is Zane Ellis Rector. I'm from Oakland, California, born and raised there. Went to public school in Berkeley, California my whole life because my parents knew that the Oakland school system was unfortunately subpar compared to Berkeley's, which was, I think, my first lesson in having to figure out ways around being put in predicaments that society and history has put us in. And so I'm thankful every day that my parents did that and technically broke the law in terms of having me go to school in a place I didn't live. And that brought me here to Cal Poly. I've been living here since 2016. And similar to what Don was saying, it's a trip coming from Oakland, Bay Area, where there are plenty of people that look like you, people that have had experiences like you, people you can talk to, people that are just there and know what it's like to live and have these experiences. And coming to Cal Poly was hard, and realizing that essentially I have to exist on a campus which not only doesn't know how to interact with people that look like myself, but in those interactions, there's really a lack of even a want to even understand like where I come from, my experiences. And then I think the worst of it all is that they are receptive to that, they suddenly will think that my experience is kind of like a blanket experience that everyone else experienced. And suddenly it's like my struggles, I suppose, and even not even like even the good things, like the positives of my life, somehow that's all applicable to every single other person that may or may not be Black, right? And that is just so unfair. And having to feel like I'm some kind of arbiter of like the Black experience, Black thought, for like what's like, for one, I'm half Black, so I don't even like nearly know like things that like my mom goes through and has gone through and will continue to go through. And it's just that's why in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement really picking up like worldwide following and support, is that at least these conversations I think can go a little bit more in depth, where before it was like a surface level thing of there's an issue, there's always been this issue, I thought it was getting better, why is it not getting better, I thought we solved these things. And finally people are realizing that there's been a shade over our eyes of a false sense of security and equality when cannot be farther from that. And we live in these false pretenses that, oh, it used to be like this and it's so much better off, yet our frame of reference is entirely skewed on that fact. And so I just feel that now people are finally having those discussions like, look, we've been saying this and it took all of this ridiculous stuff to happen for you to finally take it a little more seriously or listen a little harder. And just kind of to echo the points about like being Black and slow, it's a trip. Like, I don't know if there's another word. It's super strange. I'm still not used to it. Like, I've been here for like almost 5 years now, and it's just like I will not get used to being stared at wherever I go, walking down the street, in my car, on the bus. It's just weird. Like I cannot, like, I laugh about it, but it makes me incredibly uncomfortable, and I want to like tell these people off, like, why are you staring at me? And just to be questioned as to why you may be in a place, or like you almost need to prove your worth in terms of occupying space. And it's tiring. Like it's strange. It's really strange. And I think I kind of was my final point is for those that maybe are thinking about coming here, wanting to go to either Cuesta, Cal Poly, thinking about moving to the Central Coast, to San Luis Obispo, to the county. I don't want to say don't come here, right? I think that Black people deserve places like this. I have spoken to Black people, they love it down here. This is a beautiful place to be. There's amazing people down here. It's a fantastic spot. I think Black people deserve to have amazing places like this. But that is not to say that things do not need to change, that there is a mindset and mentality that has been embedded here for so long because of a lack of people that look like us occupying these spaces. So there's almost like in my opinion, I sense that they've never come, they're never going to come. And it's like in the back of their minds, there's like figuring out ways to keep it that way, but tacitly, like not explicitly being like, we don't want that many Black people, but also being like, I don't know if that makes sense, but I would say that Black people come to slow, so that there's more Black people in slow, and slowly it'll get from being like, you go 3 weeks without seeing a Black person to you'll be wishing you don't see no more Black person. Like, I have hope, I really do. It really is hard right now, and so for everyone that's going through it, will continue to go through it. Trust me, I've been going through it, and all I got to say is we're going to get through together. And the session right now, Christina, thank you. Everyone that's put it together, thank you. This is fantastic. And it's so cool to hear and see all y'all right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Zane. I think I'm sort of trying to sum up people's comments, but I can't do it justice, but other than to say it is tiring. And I think that, that having to prove yourself, no matter where you are, but then particularly when you're one of the very few, being that spokesperson for others isn't fair to put that on you or any other student. But when there's only a few, that's what happens, or that's what people expect from us. And it's just one of the reasons why it's tiring. There's many, many reasons that, as Dawn and others shared, but I think people are getting a sense of just what your all experiences are and the impact that it has. It doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. It just means you have to weather these things along the way to success. Renata, who's next?
All right, so we have Ashley that can speak now, and Doreen, you're on deck.
Hi, like I said before, my name is Ashley Austin. I'm going to Cal Poly. This is my first year at Cal Poly, and everything being online, it's definitely a different experience. However, college as a whole has been it's a different kind of feel. It's hard because I was talking to Christina before about just how it feels like you have to try to find your identity a lot more living in SLO, because I lived in Hanford, which is in the Central Valley. There were tons of people of color, and I felt like I could, walk down the street and see people that look just like me. In fact, when I was little, we used to point at every Black man that had a bald head and say that it was our father. Me and all my siblings, we would be like, oh, that's dad. Oh, that's dad. Oh, that's dad. And, it used to be funny because it's like, okay, not every Black man can be your father. But now living in SLO, my younger siblings, they'll point, oh, hey, there's dad, thinking like that's actually dad, because where the hell are all the other Black people? It's difficult to kind of put together all the words, to portray what it is really like living in SLO, and portray what it's like to have to know who you are and know where you can go and how you get there despite any of the challenges that you might face. It's something that, I had the, luxury of not having to face a ton of injustices or, bad things when I was younger, because my dad, he put forth every possible effort that he could, that we wouldn't have to face the same difficulties that he did. But now that I'm older, and now that I have little siblings, I have a little brother and a little sister that are quite younger than me. And now that, I see the world for what it is, it definitely becomes more real. It definitely becomes something that, people like ourselves have to think about and have to worry about every single day, about how they're gonna, grow up and what kind of world they're gonna have to live in. And it really just pushes the motivation and the desire to make what the world is better, And it's funny when people tell me like, oh, well, we've progressed so much and we're so far. And it's like, no, no, we don't have chains and, whips anymore, but it's not better. It's hard. It's difficult. And it's, up to us, but it's also up to everybody else to educate themselves on what's going on and to really see, the difficulties and understand the privileges that they've had in their life and put themselves in other people's shoes, within our own community, within other people, um, and really try to understand and live their life to better theirs and other people's lives in the future. And so that's kind of my long spiel of information that I had to share tonight. Thanks.
Thanks, Ashley. The point you made about us all trying to educate ourselves, I am encouraged that there's 125 folks here today, or probably about 100 or so that are viewers, that I can't imagine that a couple of years ago in this space, or even definitely not 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And I'm reminded of Dr. King's, I'm going to paraphrase, the arc of justice bends towards, or the arc of time bends towards justice, but it feels like it's just been, we're going through one of these really hard years right now, that it's hard to still see that. But I truly believe that. And I think because we're doing things like this, we're contributing to that arc of justice. So thank you, Ashley, for your part in that to educate others.
All right, next up is Doreen, and Carlton, you're after Doreen. I know Doreen's having some spotty internet, so. All right, Carlton.
Can y'all hear me? Perfect. Okay. Well, I don't know. I wanted to kind of just point out, I just thought it was so interesting how most of the people who spoke, they talked about the lacking of Black people in San Luis Obispo. And I don't know. I think it's funny because in my family, like it's like a constant thing we talk about. I mean, you really can count the amount of Black people in SLO on your hand. I mean, that's a little joke we make. Well, okay, so one of the things I really wanted to touch on as being like one of the younger people in this group, I wanted just to talk about there's a real problem in SLO with the younger generations having no real perspective. And it's frustrating because I don't know, as a young person within the San Luis Obispo community, I've tried to talk to my classmates, to people who are my age about the issues that are going on today, and there's no real acceptance of it or like a will to understand the issues that are going on today. I mean, I've really talked to people who have told me there is no discrimination against Black people because I don't see it. That's a real conversation I had, and to me that's scary. Like, I think that I love SLO, I've grown up here, but it's really too much of a bubble. I feel like the younger generations are really suffering. I mean, of course, it's the happiest city in America, quote unquote, but there's no resources or, sources that are getting, students that are in elementary, middle school, high school, they're not giving them, the information they need to understand. I mean, we cover the Civil War and, Martin Luther King, but in high school. But other than that, there's really no talk about the injustices that happen, especially the injustices that happen today. And to me, it's really sad. The one of the other things I wanted to talk about was, as a Black person within SLO, I didn't even understand the injustices that the Black community went through. I didn't. It wasn't until about 2 years ago that I really began looking into it. There's a real, there's too much shelter here, and it's sad to see. Yeah, I had a bunch of stuff that I wanted to say, but you know, I don't know. I just hope that through conversations like this, you know, more people can come together, and, you know, create solutions for problems like these. You know, this is a real, I mean, this is a crisis. Like, this is a problem, you know, because you have entire generations of people growing up here who, you know, don't have perspective or a way to get perspective. They have no motivation to get that perspective, you know. And I think that, you know, that really needs to change. You know, this, you know, repetitive cycle of generations getting pumped out of slow that, you know, are like way too naive and ignorant to these issues that go on daily outside of this bubble, you know, like that cycle needs to stop. So yeah, thank you.
Carlton, thank you for bringing up the bubble phenomena of San Luis Obispo. I think that many people perhaps move and stay in San Luis Obispo because of the bubble that they're in, but there's an impact to that bubble. And it's just what you just said. It's not learning about the perspectives of beyond that bubble or even within that bubble of the minority. And we do need to start this conversation much earlier in education and with our families, so we can poke some holes in that bubble. I feel like some of those holes are poking right now, but we need to poke more, and start educating sooner. Who's next?
All right, up next we have Camille, and after Camille will be Christina.
First of all, I just want to thank everyone who has shared already. I respect the amount of vulnerability and transparency that has been shared. I think for myself, I have been struggling to figure out my voice or my thoughts on the Black Lives Matter movement. And as someone who is an African American female, you know, there was a side of me that was frustrated because I thought, like, why aren't I initially outraged? Why aren't I initially exhausted? Why aren't I initially like screaming at the, you know, roof to get this figured out? And I have been trying to take the time to just think about my upbringing and I guess bringing in a sense of privilege from parts of my identity that have allowed me to be in spaces that are predominantly white. And in the midst of doing that, I've slowly started to uncover that in me being in those spaces, I was not allowing myself to fully honor, I guess, this, like the Black side of me. Like, I didn't want to go to a BSU meeting because I didn't want to have to explain to my friends that that's where I was going. I never, at sleepovers, wrapped my hair or wore a sleep cap because I never wanted to have my friends see that. I never, you know, wanted to do all these little things that I was drawn towards because I just didn't want to have to explain myself. And so I think right now where I'm at with myself is I'm challenging myself to listen not only to myself, but continuing to ask questions to my family, continuing to allow myself to be in spaces of conversation with all people, white people in particular, I guess for right now, is and allowing them to feel comfortable asking questions, because I think it's so easy to put up a barrier and just say, I'm not going to listen. I don't want to have to retell my story, but knowing when to listen with intent and knowing when to listen with a purpose. And so, yeah, being in SLO, I'm a new resident to SLO, I would say. And I was kind of caught off guard as well, not seeing as many Black faces around town. And, you know, I've heard stories and I've heard experiences. And so same thing, I would hope that as people continue to find their voice with this movement, that SLO in itself can continue to grow. And as people continue to become educated within all the campuses there in that county, that SLO will see the growth that they need. So thank you.
Thank you, Camille, for sharing that experience around, you know, particularly around growing up I know you grew up in a more predominantly white area, maybe somewhat similar to SLO, and just what that was like as well, and how you're sort of reflecting now. I think these moments have us all reflect on our experiences, not just recently, but over time. And by sharing with each other, we might see some commonalities, but I mean, among the Black community, some commonalities, but also some differences that we can learn about the different experiences, and then also share that with viewers such as those that are here today. You know, we all have a different experience, but also have some shared experience as well. So thank you.
Christina?
Okay, so I wrote a statement, and it's gonna kind of feel like a run-on sentence because that represents the exhaustion of life right now. Okay, so hi everybody. In 2010, I moved to SLO. One thing is culture shock. Another is news reports of a cross burning. Another is flyers posted in Pismo. Another is blackface and a noose hanging at a place I'm supposed to say #CP proud. In 2020, we have protests spreading like California wildfires across the United States. Students like Tiana Rada have attracted attention for their activism these last few months. There are members of this community who may not be happy with her approach, but there is no playbook for justice. The school system did what it's supposed to do: create another leader, speak up for each other, support one another. It's exactly what Tiana did. A student who walked these halls and ran their heart out on the track field. Cal Poly talks or exclaims, learn by doing. It's exactly what I'm doing here. It's exactly what has been taking place. I work in education to make a difference, just like my mentors. They don't know they are, but people like Dr. West encouraged me to keep reaching out to our Black students on campus. And Renata cheered for me when I was accepted to the grad program, or Dr. Alameda, who provided me a space to talk about my emotional struggle about the continuous killings of people of color, or Zarina McDonald, who took a moment to remind me that I matter. They are pieces of inspiration I have been able to meet while working at Cuesta. So I don't want you guys to get me wrong, but I love the Central Coast, just like Zane mentioned. Great weather, clear skies, low crime, and an education system that is designed to provide support for my kids that I love. I think about them all the time. How do they feel? What do they identify as? Do they grasp why I may silently worry? I think about their safety each day, always in the back of my mind. I've had multiple conversations with my brother since moving here from Fresno. Don't grow your hair out, it may cost you your job. Don't get your ears pierced, they may look at you. Don't ride your bike at night, they may stop you. And don't wear that hoodie because you already know. But I'm here pushing on. My grandpa and my great-grandpa, my uncle, they used to work at the Atascadero State Hospital. And now I figure this place is just as much mine as it was theirs back during segregation. So I stand here just as my father had me at the bus stop as a child. And he would say, "You are Schollers, and don't you ever forget that." I felt strength in that moment, and I reclaim that strength now from a bloodline of perseverance, leadership, and change. I'm here in the process of growth, and as viewers, I hope you all embrace our words and look at experiencing growth and helping others around you grow. If you work at Cuesta and you're watching, I ask for you to be a part of the necessary change to end systemic racism that has been rooted in these textbooks and teachings and thoughts you may have. Join our 21-day Racial Equity and Social Justice Challenge. Do it for the students you teach now and will do in the future. Do it for the students you see up on this panel and may sit in your classrooms one day. To the panelists, I ask that you each embrace this moment with me. I took this leap not just for myself, but for my family and my future family. I've heard that when you end a generational curse, you heal 7 generations back and 7 generations in the future. And that's what I'm doing here tonight. These past weeks have reminded me to meditate in positive affirmations. So I ask for all of you to repeat this. I am strength. I am courage, and I am peace. Thank you.
I am strength, I am courage, I am peace. I'm
And
stealing.
I forgot one more. I am
Okay.
change.
I am change. Thank you so much, Christina, for that very well thought out and emotional and touching share that you have. And I want to thank you on behalf of the panelists for bringing us all together, because it was you that, you know, initiated this, invited us, coordinated it, and I think this is the type of thing that will make a difference. And I know it has for me, and I would assert for others on the panel, but also for the viewers. And I love that what you said about the 7 generations before us and 7 generations after us. So it's not just about us, and particularly for those of you who are parents, whether you're parents of Black children or parents of white children or any other race, we have to have our focus on the future as well.
I have Courtney Hale from Race Matter Slow, and after Courtney will be Michael Boyer.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Thank you, Renata. Thank you, Christina. Thank you all. I did not realize this would be so healing. This is like a therapy session. And you've all said so many great things that have sort of changed what now I want to say. But I'm here representing Race Matters, and we really aim to center you, Black and other people of color, through artistic, cultural, and intellectual events and initiatives in a nutshell. And so I know some of your faces, but some of you have new faces. And so I definitely want to be in touch, because we're going to be having some big projects coming up, and I definitely want to amplify your voices and your stories in creative ways. So I'll put my email in the chat later. So I mentioned earlier I moved here in high school, so I'll go back. Born in San Francisco, spent a few years in Saudi Arabia with my family, moved back to San Francisco, and that's where I knew I was Black for the first time, and some of the racial teasing started. By middle school, it was more of the acting white teasing, and that was a long stretch. And I got it from pretty much everybody, all races. So so I'm here in therapy still about it. But that definitely, I would say, still informs my work, because well, going back to San Luis High, culture shock coming from the city. Even though in the city I was in private schools and predominantly white spaces, it was still not like cowboys. So it was kind of like this varsity blues, sort of all-American, with some surfers and some cowboys mixed in. And so definitely a culture shock there. My Black, I didn't develop, or I wasn't able to develop really a healthy Black identity until college, through Black studies and ethnic studies classes and Black film classes. And I was a communication major at USC and studied a lot of race, media, gender, and class, and was able to have structure to my childhood and contextualize a lot of the media images I was taking in. Ended up getting a master's in ethnic studies with no real direction for academia, but I'm kind of using it now. So it worked out. It was a windy road, but and so, gosh, in high school, I didn't face overt racism in San Luis Obispo that I'm aware of. I mean, not to my face, but literally every Black man who I grew up with here has detailed accounts of routinely being pulled over by police and being blatantly racially profiled. And so I know that my experience isn't reflective of a lot of folks' experiences who grew up locally here. Oh my goodness. And so here we are. Things are totally crazy. Been doing this work in the last few months hasn't been perfect. It's been a roller coaster. It's been painful, scary, confusing. There's folks out there who I feel, and maybe across all races, whose threshold has been stretched in terms of their support for the movement, maybe not being aligned with all decisions, a lot of feedback. A lot of people in the movement have been targeted in different ways, and whether that's directly physically through online threats. I personally have been smeared and libeled, so not super fun, but it's also exciting. There's been an outpouring of support and resources that allows me to have an idea and then be able to implement it and pay people. And so that feels really good, and it's a big deal to be able to just be able to express my creative passions through this work, and to have a platform to do it is awesome. And so I want to celebrate that and take that in, even though it's been super crazy and racists have been emboldened in our community, and it's certainly very divided, but at the same time, there was always that division under the surface. And we've talked about the bubble, it's starting to be burst, and some people cannot handle that and want it to be like it always was. And it's their last sort of desperate gasps, you know, and that's sort of, we're seeing that come out in the threats and the harassment and just crazy behavior. And so we're here. Where are we? And so one of the things Race Matters does is create, or that we've tried to do, is create Black social spaces, but there's definitely faces I haven't seen there. And COVID did get in the way of our socials, definitely, but we might bring them back on Zoom or outside, we'll see. And so one of the things that I do want to do is be more inclusive of those who aren't 21, because all of them were centered around wine. So that doesn't work for everybody. So we're gonna work on that and keep pushing forward with, I mean, seeing this space, it's so needed and healing for us to talk about our experiences in this predominantly white community, and Race Matters approaches our work just with the reality that that's the community and that the work looks different in a community like that. And part of that is creating conversations like this, and also action. I know a lot of us want to see structural change. I know Cheryl's going to talk about voting later, but I definitely want us to vote and research our candidates. And as I know, we all have structural change on our minds in these last few months, and just really researching the candidates, asking them questions, and voting in an informed way, knowing that there's going to be people up there who you can push and hold accountable. And so we can see this cultural and also structural and systemic change locally. So voting's definitely in my mind, and I know we'll probably talk about that later as well. And follow Race Matters Slow on Instagram. There's going to be an upcoming voting event aimed at the youth this Saturday. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney, for sharing your journey before and during your time in SLO. And you reminded me, you know, when we talked about the emboldenedness of some of the racism that's coming out now, that there's always a backlash whenever we are on the verge or have made some progress. Like after the Civil War was over, ushered in the Jim Crow era, and after the Civil Rights Movement, there was also a backlash. So we shouldn't be surprised, but we can learn from those prior years and use that going forward. But you know, the backlash is real. You're experiencing it, so thank you for the work that you do and for taking a brunt of a lot of, I'm sure, or hateful comments that you've experienced in your line of work in San Luis Obispo.
Up next, we have Michael Boyer, and after Michael will be Dr. Veronica West.
Good evening. I hope you don't mind. I prepared a statement, anyway, we'll see how it goes. First, I have white privilege. I was adopted as a baby to a large white family in an all-white community of Wasilla, Alaska. I am 53% Norwegian, 18% African, and 10% Jewish, among other European nationalities. But obviously, outwardly in America, I look Black. I was raised white with the confidence and expectations of a white person, the wealth of a white family, I only had the full realization that I was different after being physically assaulted when I was in junior high school. It took me many years of attacks in the forms of assault, slashed tires, police harassment, verbal abuse, to really realize that I would never fit into this white community as other white men do. I have lived in this area for 20 years. My wife and I chose to raise our family here in San Luis Obispo. When our boy was a baby, walking through Vaughn's and Grover Beach, I was accused of kidnapping by a fellow shopper. She proceeded to call the police, saying that I could not possibly be the father of this blonde boy. Needless to say, the store manager and the police officer apologized to me. Over the past 20 years, I've been involved with many community organizations, working every day to make SLO a better place to live. In April of 2011, we had a cross burning in Aurora Grande. With this, to support the family, the city leadership called a meeting of all the community, organizations, concerned citizens, and so on to this event. This was the founding of the Diversity Coalition of San Luis Obispo County. Over the last 9.5 years, we've continued to provide resources, education, public art, and community building to all marginalized populations in the county. In order for us to be successful in assisting the allies to our cause, we must teach people the basics of real American history. So many people I deeply respect have not learned the real history of Black America. It was systematically whitewashed from our schools' curriculums. If you don't learn the real history of America, you don't know that redlining actually happened all over California, all the way up until 1980. You don't know that it's happened across the country all the way up to 2015, when Wells Fargo was fined $175 million for redlining in Atlanta. You don't know that emancipation didn't actually happen in 1863. You don't know that the Tulsa race riots you don't know anything about the Tulsa race riots. You don't know anything about the 4,000 plus lynchings that were recorded by county clerks across our country. You don't know about the Tuskegee syphilis study spanning 40 years with 600 victims. We must teach our kids and our adults the real American history and stop teaching what feels good that follows the current white narrative. This education builds a foundation of allies, teaching them what causes systemic racism. It's only then that they can begin to understand and walk beside those of us living it every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing that, some of the real history, or at least listing some of them off. And I encourage folks, if Michael shared anything that you are not familiar with, please look it up and educate yourselves. Who's next?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Wow, I wish I could have had you guys 20-some years ago. I'm going to give it's so much. I have so much written down. I wish I would have just written a whole thing, and I'll try not to be too long because it's so much to put in like 5 minutes or so. So where do I start? First of all, like Renata, I always give honor to our ancestors. We stand on the shoulders of many. We come from strong people. So we may get tired, but honey, we ain't tired yet. We're gonna keep on fighting a good fight. Even though we go through all this, that's what makes us who we are. Every time I walk across a stage, every time I do anything, I give honor and praise to all of my ancestors who can never do what we're doing. That's why we must take advantage of voting. That's why we must take advantage of education. That's why we must take advantage of all of those things that they fought for and died. That's one. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri. That was one of the last slave states that gave it up, I should say. And with that, I grew up with a lot of prejudice around me. And honestly, I didn't really know what it meant at that time. I didn't understand what the word prejudice was or racism was. I remember I grew up in a mostly white neighborhood or Caucasian neighborhood like several others. And it's funny, part of that story is anytime you meet someone, they're shocked that, oh, you grew up in a white neighborhood, because the TV and the media has made it though we don't have daddies, we don't have mothers, we don't have grandmothers, we're all on drugs. So that's one of the ways things are affected. I know anytime I say that I'm a doctor, I'm a clinical psychology, I'm an LMFT, you have a doctorate? It's like it's astonishment. Like we're not supposed to have that. So I moved here in 1994, but I want to talk about the 1968. That was the year that I was born. And I mentioned that not to tell the world my age, but I mentioned that for a reason. Most people do not realize that myself and everyone that's my age and up or down, I should say, my age and down, I'm sorry, I hear someone sneeze thing. It's bad. Cheryl, is yours on? Okay, I'm sorry. People don't realize that since 1968, we're the first generation born out of segregation. I remember getting segregated to schools. I remember being called the N-word when I was 5 years old and we moved out of the neighborhood to our nice, beautiful suburban home. And I was 4 years old and riding my little bike and being so happy about being in a little neighborhood on the street and being spit on and called the N-word. My children grew up here in their first experiences in kindergarten were the N-word also. So around 4 or 5, when they are introduced into school, that is also something that is introduced. Systemic racism is real. It has always been real. And when people deny it, it's really heartbreaking because you're denying my experience. You're denying what I've been through. You're denying what my ancestors have been through. It is already noted in our health. The COVID has shown that. It is noted in high blood pressure. African Americans have the highest high blood pressure because we are under tremendous stress every day. Every day we walk out of our house, we're afraid we're going to get killed. This has been since day one. I can say in the 80s, I felt a lot safer then than I feel now. In the last 5 years, it has worsened. I can say in 94, when I first moved here, for the first 7 to 8 years from moving to San Luis to 5 cities, my husband was pulled over every time he got a new car. Every time they saw him in anything other than what they knew him in, he got pulled over. And he's a professional. He's a career man. He's not just out there doing anything. Everyone wants to know, what do your husband do? How do you get out of here? How do you own that car? We work. Are we not supposed to own things? I remember the first time I went to Santa Barbara in Saks, and I've only been in there 2 times. The second time I went in there. I've never been back again. I don't even think they're open now. But I literally was followed throughout the entire store. It was the most demeaning thing ever. We deal with systemic racism in schools. Now, Michael just mentioned it, and I was going to mention it so I don't have to go through it. Thank you, Michael, for all of the things that is not taught. And honestly, some of the things I didn't even know until I became an adult and became self-taught. Some of you younger youth on here, I respect and I appreciate everything that you said. I try to, with my children and all of their friends and anyone who wants to come into my little hut, because I'm like, come on in, I'll take anyone. I try to teach and give them love about who you are from day one. You know, a lot of people don't realize a lot of African Americans, and I like to be called African American, not just an American, because I am proud of my African ancestry. And whether I'm called it or not, when I walk out the door, you see this? They know who I am anyway, right? So in school, it happens. I remember being in college and having a fight, or even in high school and having a fight to prove that I'm an A student, and tell them, hey, I don't do C's. I'm an A student. You have to literally let them know that you're not going to settle for a C. I can remember that since day one. We have to wear different hats when we're in different environments, unfortunately, because that's the way we most people don't accept us the way we are, who we are. We are become that, if we just show a little anxiety, a little pressure, because a lot like Italians, they're given that pass of being excited, and African Americans are not given that pass. We're angry if we get passionate about something. We're the angry Black woman, or we're the, what have you. So that's a problem. The systemic racism shows in housing. Mr. Boyer, Michael, also mentioned that. And I want to tell you a story that in 1993, we purchased our second home here in San Luis Obispo at the movie. No, I'm sorry. I wrote it down. In 2003. We had to wait 3 weeks after, and we were the only ones to put an offer in this particular house. And we're still the only ones in our neighborhood that are Black and always have been. And it's a nice neighborhood, and they did not want us here. They had just built it. The people that were building it didn't. They're supposed to give you, if you don't know, if you've never purchased a house, they have a time limit to respond to you. They went well beyond that. We had to get to the point where we threatened to sue them, and it finally went through, and we're still in this home now. But there are so many things that go on. Systemic racism occurs in songs and music and TV every day. We are always presented as the crackhead, as the sexual perverted person, the R&B, whatever. Like I stated earlier, the people without parents that are married. My parents were married 30, 40 something, 40, 50, almost 50 years now. I've been married 26 years. And guess what? We're professionals. We're doing everything just like anyone else does. But we're not always seen like that initially. So I don't want to hold too much time up, but I do, my children were born and raised here. My daughter was the only Black cheerleader at AG High for many years. People will go, oh, how come, who's your daughter? I go, look for her. She's only Black. We laugh about it, but it was true. There is a bubble that exists. I've always been excited when I do see an African American anywhere. The difference that you guys, the younger people, have that I did have when I first moved here in San Luis Obispo. At that time, there were 3 Black churches. There was the House of Prayer. There was what was it, Liberty? Was it Liberty? Pastor Ford, I forget the 2 different other churches, but there was churches that we could at least go to. Now it's a little bit less, it's a little bit scattered. As you know, most African Americans usually have a gathering places of the church. So that's kind of a good way to kind of get to know each other and to find other people that think like you and look like you. On jobs, I have definitely dealt with racism. I've been skipped over. I've trained people, watched them. You name it, it's happened. It happens. I've watched my children come here, and my daughter, who is now 24, she's in her second year of law school. She dealt with a lot in schools here with not having friends. She's beautiful. She never had a homecoming date. She never had a prom date. She was AG cheerleader, very popular, but she missed out on all of that. So I taught her to always still be independent. We purchased her a dress. I gave her one of our nice cars, one of our nicer ones. She didn't have to drive the junky one. And we let her, and I taught her to still be strong in who you are and go and do this and enjoy yourself, because that's what we have to do. We still have to teach our children how to survive in a world that may not always accept them. One of the things I wanted to talk about was hair. I had told the panel earlier that I wore this t-shirt. I don't know if you can see it. It says, please don't touch my hair. It's an ethical thing. In Africa, as Africans, every time you turn around, you change your hairdo, someone wants to put their hand in your hair. We don't mind helping and teaching people about African Americans, but someone mentioned they were tired. I've been here for 26 years on the Central Coast, and you do get tired. You do get tired, you get drained. So having things like this is so important. I actually fly home often so I can be by my family and be by other people who I can just be me with and let my hair down literally and just enjoy life with. It is a culture shock when you first move here. It's a culture shock when you've been here a while. I've been here 26 years and I never totally get used to it. I just wanted to say thank you again to Christina. I also didn't mention that I'm also the co-chair of our BSU, which is UJAMA. I appreciate all of this, and I appreciate our school giving us the privilege to be able to do this, because I never would even ask. Christina, I'm proud of you, because it's like I don't even ask anymore. I just say, okay, let's do it. So thank you, everyone, and I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing more people like you.
Thank you, Dr. West, for those many examples of not only your experience, but also the examples of systemic racism that I think folks need to hear more about and to believe that it actually exists, because it does. Renata, who's next?
I'm sorry, Dr. West. We have 3 more people. So the way we're going to do it is we're going to have Mariana speak. Then we're going to have Tatiana, and then Cheryl Vines will speak last and talk about the NAACP and voter registration. Mariana?
All right. Whew. I'm really enjoying everyone's stories. There's just so much commonality. I don't live in San Luis Obispo. I live in Santa Maria, which is the next county over. But I can say that everything that you all have shared here, same thing happens to me here in Santa Maria. It's not, and you don't have to go far for it to happen even further down south. I'm gonna give you a little bit of my background, and then I really want to talk to you about education, because I'm a teacher, and that's where I'm trying to make my change happen, is in the education system. So I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, Northeast Portland, Oregon. I moved here to Santa Maria in, I don't remember what year, but I was in high school. So I lived in a predominantly Black community. So I was around mostly Black people. I went to like all Black schools and everything. I moved to Santa Maria. Now I'm in a mostly Mexican community, going to all Mexican schools. So what I noticed is I just went from one segregated place to another segregated place. And it was interesting. I'll say that it was interesting. Something that that I found most interesting was the amount of white teachers in a predominantly Mexican area. Now in Portland, there was a very small percentage of Black people, and we had Black teachers, but we also had white teachers. But here in Santa Maria, it's very much almost all Mexican. It's about 75% Mexican. And for there to be no Mexican teachers, that really was alarming to me, which is part of the reason why I went into teaching in the first place. So I'm currently an elementary school teacher. Like I said, I went to Cal Poly. I also am the coordinator for human rights for the Channel Islands Equity Center, which is through CTA. So I'm doing work with my union as well and helping to create an equity team. It has been very challenging. Sometimes you think that things cannot be any worse, and I'm learning that it can get even worse. Currently in my district, in my school district, Santa Maria Bonita, we have a school board that is doubling down on white supremacy culture and anti-Blackness. They do not want to hear anything about Black Lives Matter. They don't want to have diversity. They want us to follow the white-centered program. They want every teacher to be on the same page at the same time on the same day. And that's a red flag to me, because I'm not doing it. They're gonna have to fire me if that's what they expect from me. But that is the message that's being given to teachers currently in Santa Maria. I mean, I could really go on about how terrible the program is, but one example I'm gonna give you that just broke my heart. There is a traditional African fairy tale called Why Mosquitoes Buzz in People's Ear. When I opened this program, I saw that story in there, but they took the African man out. They replaced him with a little white boy, blonde hair, blue eyes, and then made all the animals cute and fun. And somehow that was thought of as better. I refuse to teach any of the program because it is all white centered. And when Dr. West was saying that the white supremacy is everywhere, it is everywhere. It is in your child's classroom right now, today. If we want to see some change, we really need to face that reality that there is white supremacy in your life at all times. It's around you, it's in your head, it's everywhere. And if we're going to actually make some change, we really need to start with the self, with the love for ourselves, and protecting our joy and protecting who we are. That's what I see moving forward. It's great to have allies. I think the Black Lives Matter movement, it's gotten so big, it's worldwide. It's one of the biggest civil rights movements that we've had in history, and it's amazing, and I love it. And it makes me so happy and so joyful. But if all you have in your classroom is a sign that says Black Lives Matter, or you're wearing a t-shirt that says Black Lives Matter, but you're not teaching anything about Black Lives Matter, and you're not using the free curriculum from Black Lives Matter, you ain't doing nothing. You're not. It's for show. So we really got to make some actionable change if you want to be a part of this movement. Now for my peoples, I love y'all. I love every single one of y'all. We got to protect ourselves. We got to protect that joy. We got to protect that love for each other. I'm reminded of Toni Morris. Toni Morris said, racism, that ain't my problem. That sounds like a white people problem to me. And that's how I live my life. Racism ain't my problem. I can educate you on it. I can tell you my experience. I can let you know some things, but it really is not my problem. I'm gonna protect myself at all costs. And I really want to let Black folks know that that's where it is. Find that joy, love on yourself, love yourself even more. Even if you think you love yourself to the fullest, you can love yourself even more. Please do that. I'm all excited now. I'm like, what else you want me to say? But real talk though, it is all about love. It really is. We don't really want anything from white people. We don't want you to give us anything. We don't want you to tangibly give us something. What we want is for y'all to leave us alone so that we can lift ourselves up. Stop voting for laws that oppress us. Stop putting people in power that are putting us in prison. Leave us alone. Take us out of the equation. Do you so we can do us. That's really what we want here. Let us be. We want to live. We want to be fully human. So I'm gonna leave y'all on that.
Wow, thank you so much, Mariana, especially for the self-love reminder. I think it's very important for us to protect ourselves and love on ourselves and love each other at the same time. And representation among teachers matter. I had a graduate student tell me that I'm the first Black face they've had as a professor, and they went through college and then a year of grad school, and they've never had a teacher that resembled myself. And so thank you for you being a teacher, but also for your resistance to the white supremacist program that is being implemented. Hopefully they're listening to your voice.
All right, next we have Tatiana.
Hello, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, good. Thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of this evening. I feel like everybody needs to take kind of a breath, like, yeah. It's been one hell of a year. I feel like, sorry, I don't mean to cuss, but I'll try not to. So I was born and raised in San Luis Obispo, went to school, had birthdays, went to the beach, went to Cuesta. I mean, it was something that like, I just kind of knew I was gonna do. I'm an artist, musician first, really. Played music since I was a kid. Always been fascinated by music. My influences as far as what got me into music, I would say would be jazz, and punk music, metal, pop culture, classical, hip hop, doesn't matter. Music's my thing. And going to Cuesta, I knew I wanted to do music, but the competition of participating was always kind of a frightening thing. And the reason being was most of the music classes or the audio technology class that I participated in, they were dominated by mostly white guys. Just pretty much everybody in the classrooms were white males who had money, who could buy equipment, and talk about buying more equipment. And here I am, a Black female in the music interest, and I'm broke, can't afford barely, guitar strings, just to put on my guitar. I played locally. I fronted a metal band for 7-8 years, something like that. And a lot of people never saw a woman or a young lady fronting a metal or hardcore band, let alone a Black female doing extreme vocals or making any type of angsty noise. So in a way that was already hella taboo for San Luis Obispo. And I would say probably about 12 years ago, there was a lot more music venues. And I would do anything I could to play music. It didn't matter where we were, didn't matter if it was in a cave, a garage, a professional venue, no matter how far we had to travel to go and play music. I made sure that my band and myself got there. We were backed by awesome people. Our family members were super supportive. And I knew for sure, I was like, I really, really, really want to do music and pursue it as a career. And I took George Stone's class finally, and completed the course and got my certificate of specialization for audio technology. And I was so proud and so happy to have done that, being that I didn't really care what anybody else thought. I was just like, you know what, I'm going to do it. I have to. And I know that there is a lot of people who were up against the idea of having a woman being a person to say anything, to have a say so in sound, or being behind a music board of any kind, or putting together instruments or composing, and just having any type of thought of doing this as a career. I really strived to prove people wrong. And right after I was done with the program at Cuesta, I started working in a lot of big music industry type of things that I never thought I was going to be able to do. And unfortunately, being a year later after the program, here's COVID. And COVID has affected the Black and Brown community tremendously throughout the world, I would say. And what I feel like people should know is, especially people of color, they should know that no matter how difficult things do get, especially in times like this, your voice does matter. And making an effort to do the best you can. Don't let people take away your joy, your magic, your strength, your art, your education. You can do anything. So that's what I got.
Thank you, Tatiana. That was great. Great ending, especially. You can do anything. We can do anything. Renata.
And last but not least is Cheryl Vines from the NAACP San Luis Obispo branch, who was going to talk about her experiences and about voting.
Wow, this has been great. Thank you, everyone, for your words. And I'm here to tell you, I feel your pain, and it does get better. Okay. I grew up here. I was born in Los Angeles. My parents, well, actually, my grandmother moved to Nipomo first in like 1951. And I moved up here when I was 4 years old. And so, not that I'm trying to tell my age or anything, but I have lived on and off on the Central Coast for over 60 years, and mainly in Nipomo. My husband and I, when we first got married, we did live in San Luis Obispo for probably about 14 years, but I always want to be back in Nipomo because it's just very, I love the country. I love hearing the birds and looking at the butterflies and all that, and taking bike rides on country roads. But it wasn't, all good. I actually grew up in a Black neighborhood, okay? Every home on this road was Black owned, and probably about, I would say in any direction, there were Black people who owned their property and stuff here in Nipomo. And a lot of people don't know that. But one of the reasons for that is because San Luis Obispo, Santa Maria, Lompoc, they wouldn't let Black people buy property. And so a lot of Black families that came in through Vandenberg, back then it was called Camp Cook, they were able to purchase, property, but buy land and stuff. And it was here in Nipomo. Of course, that changed. Also, Grover Beach was at that time, we called it Grover City, was pretty open. So there was a lot of Black families that also ended up in Grover Beach as well. So I went to grade school and high school in Arroyo Grande. I went to a private grade school. It's Valley View Adventist Academy. I went there from 1st to 8th grade. And then I told my parents I didn't want to go away to boarding school. I wanted to stay with my friends. And so I ended up going to Arroyo Grande High School for 4 years. In grade school, I knew everybody from 1st grade, to 8th grade. We went to church together. We were in school together. And that was really probably the beginning of my, what do I want to call it? Not really militant, but my quest to make things better is because there was, racism even at that level, okay? And I'm sure most of you have experienced that. But I'm a real people person. And so my feelings got hurt when, you play on the playground with people, but you're not invited to their house for the birthday parties and all that. And I would go home and I'd tell my mom, it's like, well, they didn't invite me. They gave everybody else the invitation and I wasn't invited. And so my parents, they were great. My dad was from Louisiana, Shreveport area, and my mom is from New Orleans. And so they sat me down and said, look, you're Black, okay? And they told me the ABCs of racism, okay? And so that was at a very young age. But they also told me, but it's okay to be Black, and that you are as good as they are or better, and don't let anyone steal your joy. You're beautiful, and you know, just ignore it. We'll have a party for you. Okay, so and they did. So, you know, like I said, I went from 1st to 8th grade with mostly the same people. Once in a while, new people would come in and they would start with the name calling and all that kind of stuff. But once I graduated from grade school, I went to Arroyo Grande High. And that was the real kind of like eye opener. I mean, it was just so divided, okay? And if you weren't in sports, then, you know, you weren't really, you know, you weren't popular, or, you know, you just didn't have some of the privileges that, you know, other people, you know, would have. So it was very, very segregated at that time. And I understand that Rio Grande High School has changed a little bit since then, because that 5 cities area is a very diverse area. And so, you know, it has changed. But fast forwarding to today's time, and, you know, living in Nipomo, I've gone away a couple of times. I went to Fresno State when I first got out of high school. And in fact, the counselor in high school had, well, my mom actually called the school and wanted to know why her daughter wasn't taking college prep classes. And so the counselor actually had a nerve to say, well, we didn't think she wanted to go to college. And my mother says, what are you talking about? My mom had a master's degree, right? It's like, what are you talking about? My daughter wants to go to college. Okay, so after that, you know, they put me in classes that, you know, college prep classes and everything. And I ended up going to Fresno State with a 4-year scholarship in nursing, which I found out that after I started cutting the cadavers and all that, it's like, this is not for me. Okay, I don't want to be a nurse. And so, and then I also moved to Washington, D.C. I lived there for about 6 years. And, you know, Chocolate City, that was a great eye-opening experience. But going back to Fresno State, that's when I really realized about Black people that, you know, were in poverty, and they were still picking cotton. And I was just like blown away. I was like, the girls in the dorm, every Saturday, they would get up early and they would go to work. And I said, well, where are you guys working at? I said, I want to make some extra money. And, oh, we're going to pick cotton. And my mouth kind of like flew, but I had no idea that cotton even grew in California, let alone, you know, people were still picking cotton. And that was in 1969 and 1970, okay? And then just the way, you know, the people were treated there, a very segregated city, and, you know, just very racist. I saw actually Black men being chased by dogs in Fresno. And it was just really a weird experience. So that's where I kind of, you know, opened my eyes to what racism was about, and how our people were treated. But what came out of Fresno State, because that was actually the end of the civil rights era in 69, 70, like that, was that we were protesting. And it really reminds me of what's going on now with Black Lives Matter. I got to meet and march with Angela Davis, Cesar Chavez, for the Farm Workers of America. And it was just a really wonderful experience. We were out there picketing and fighting basically for our lives, in which we're doing, today. So after Fresno State, I married a jerk, okay, and moved to Washington, D.C. with him. And that was where I really found myself, because, that was Chocolate City. And there was doctors, lawyers, just so many people of color that were prominent, and, I found my voice actually in Washington, D.C., and it gave me great confidence. So, but I know what you guys are going through, okay? You could be probably the only Black person in a room, okay? And it's okay. I look at it as, well, let me say it this way. If they don't want to get to know me, that's their problem. It's kind of like what the young lady was saying about Toni Morrison. It's their problem. The racism is their problem, okay? And it comes out of ignorance. And I really feel that white people, not all white people, but they're ignorant to think that we're any different than they are, that we are not allowed to have the same type of luxuries that they have because of the color of our skin. That's ignorance. And we are, in more ways than none, in my opinion, we are better than them. We love better, we give more, and it's, it really is their problem that they are so caught up in this power struggle that they can't see it. And they're the ones, yeah, we might have high blood pressure and all that, but they're the ones that are actually missing out on a wonderful opportunity to, to get to know us. In 1965, we took a road trip. My grandmother and her sister took us to New Orleans. And so we had to go through Texas and all these, racist states. And we got pulled over in Texas. My grandmother was driving a brand new 1965 Chevy, and my aunt had a brand new 1965 Cadillac. And the highway patrol in Texas pulled them over, and for no reason, basically. And he says, "I driver's license." I don't think back then you had to show your insurance. I was only 13, so I was, wasn't paying that much attention. But I know that we got pulled over, and my grandmother was like, "You kids don't say a word." It was my older sister, my brother, and being from California, we're very vocal. Okay.
I'm sorry, Cheryl. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Can you would you mind wrapping that up? We're almost
oh, okay, sure.
Talking about. So
sure.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. So anyway, they pulled them over, and so they were like, "Well, why are you pulling us over?" "Oh, I just wanted to see who was in this car." And he's looking around and, and everything. And he says, "Well, if niggers can drive brand new cars like this, then I need to move to California." Okay. And then we drove further into the South, and that's where we saw the segregation, the signs, for colors only, whites here and all that. And I had never seen that. So that was a really eye-opening experience as well. The NAACP has been doing voter registration for years. Because of the NAACP, we have voting rights, okay? A lot of people right now are celebrating and saying, oh, that, the women got the rights to vote. We're celebrating 100 years of women's right to vote. Well, that's for white women, okay? women of color didn't have the right to vote 100 years ago. We didn't really get the right till 1965, 1968, something like that, to actually vote. So, but what we're doing in our area and our branch is we're really focusing on getting the vote out. Voter registration in this county is pretty high. So, you know, at all of our rallies and everything that we do, we want to make sure that people are actually registered to vote. But you can check your status as well by going to the voter registration website. So we're doing a couple of different things. We're going to be harvesting voter applications by going to some of the underserved areas, for instance, like the senior homes and stuff, people that can't really get out. And so we're going to be picking up their voter registration, or not registration, but their ballots, okay? So we'll be doing that. And we're just really focusing on ways that we can, you know, get the vote out. It's really important that our voice is heard. And that's the only way change is going to come, is to actually get the vote out. So, and it's not just the president that we need to vote for, but there's the senators, the Congress people, there's all the issues, the propositions as well, that is very important, because that's what changes, you know, the laws. The president up here, but it's your senators and Congress people that you really need to know, and you need to actually you know their record, their voting record. And the NAACP, they list the voting records of all the congressmen and senators. And you can look that up on the national website, which is naacp.org. Voting and progress go hand in hand. If it wasn't for the people that come before us, like John Lewis, and you know, there's many, many more, we would not be able to be having this conversation, you know, today. So, you know, make sure that you get out and vote. That's the way your voice is going to be heard. Don't sit back. Tell your family and friends. There's battleground states that we're going to be writing letters to as well. In fact, we're having a rally on Thursday, and we're going to have letters there for people to help us to stuff those envelopes and send them off to battleground states.
Do you know
that's
where that's going to be, Cheryl? Where people can?
Yeah, so it's at the county courthouse, 1050 Monterey Street. We're having our fifth rally. We've been doing a rally on the first Thursday of every month. And so this one is the Interfaith Action Rally. We have like 8 different congregations that will be participating. They're going to be speaking on justice, love for the community. And, you know, our push is to, you know, get the vote out and get participation. And of course, you know, members, we're a membership-driven organization. So every member counts. We need your help. We need to get, you know, 45, I'm sorry to get political, but we got to get 45 out of the White House, okay? So whatever we can do to reach those battleground states, making phone calls, sending letters, texting, is what we're gonna do. So, and we have what, 5 weeks from today?
Yep.
Yeah, to make it all happen. So
thank you so
yeah,
much.
the current climate in our county and in the nation is just it's terrible. So, and we have to make a change. And the only way we can do that is to vote and stand up for what's right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Carol, particularly for the emphasis on our voices being heard through voting. You know, we can share our voices in an event like this, but how our voices can truly be heard, especially to the powers that be, is through our vote. So please follow up with, go to the NAACP website and find out more information that Cheryl shared. And thank you for the work that you do, Cheryl.
Okay, and let me just say this too. The local website is NAACP slocty.org. So you can go to that website to, if you're interested in becoming a member, or if you want to volunteer, there's a form that you could fill out on that website to volunteer to help to get the vote out.
Thank you so much. And I want to take a moment just to thank all of the panelists for their voices, for their stories, for their the education that you provided me, and I know all the others that listened in today and that will view this recording. We heard many different voices of different ages, different shades, different genders, different backgrounds, and they're all part of the Black experience. And you know, we talked a lot about representation and how representation matters, and that is obviously a big part. I don't want to diminish that, but we also started to talk about systemic racism, and that is another level that some folks aren't willing to acknowledge. And you know, I don't know about you, but if I don't acknowledge there's a problem, there's never going to be a solution. So we have more work to do to expose those many different, the pervasiveness of systemic racism and white supremacy. Many of you shared today about those. So I encourage us all to learn even more about it and to continue speaking our voice. So on behalf of the other hosts, I just want to thank you all and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining.